The Holy Gospel according to Luke.
Glory to you, O Lord.
Then Jesus told them a parable about their need to pray always and not to lose heart. He said, "In a certain city there was a judge who neither feared God nor had respect for people. In that city there was a widow who kept coming to him and saying, 'Grant me justice against my opponent.' For a while he refused. But later he said to himself, 'Though I have no fear of God and no respect for anyone, yet because this widow keeps bothering me, I will grant her justice, so that she may not wear me out by continually coming.' And the Lord said, 'Listen to what the unjust judge says. And will not God grant justice to his chosen ones who cry to him day and night? Will he delay long in helping them? I tell you, he will quickly grant justice to them. And yet, when the Son of Man comes, will he find faith on earth?'" The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, O Christ.
You may be seated. Now, it is most often my practice to preach on the gospel passage, but when I saw the readings for this assigned readings for this Sunday, I couldn't help but talk about Jacob from our Old Testament reading. Jacob is one of my very favorite characters in the Hebrew Scriptures, and so I was delighted to see a story from his life in today's readings. And I especially love this part of his story, this night of wrestling with God. It's a moment that offers something powerful for us as people of faith. It's a story that speaks a beautiful word of hope into the challenges and struggles of our lives. But before we get into that piece, I do want us to back up just a little bit, to remind ourselves about who Jacob is and to remember, or maybe hear for the first time, perhaps, some of the details of his story. How did he get to this place? Because this will help us understand why this moment is so poignant and so powerful. At the heart of my fondness for Jacob is, I think, the fact that he is a character we can relate to. Jacob was a man who was not without his flaws. And in fact, Jacob's flaws, I think, ought to make a lot of us, perhaps most of us or all of us, feel better about ourselves, because he had a lot of them. He made a lot of mistakes in his life. And to be fair, life didn't necessarily start out very fair for Jacob. And I think that's something that might on its own give us some sympathy for him. He was born the underdog to his twin brother, Esau, right? Esau was the strong, skillful hunter. He was their dad's favorite. And Jacob, the other twin, was quiet. He spent his days with his mom and the other women in the tents. Jacob was his mom's favorite. Jacob was also born a trickster, or at least that's how the story goes. He was born second. He came out of his mother's womb holding on to his brother's heel, and that's what his name meant. Jacob is the one who grasps the heel, which is actually a Hebrew phrase to describe someone who is deceptive, to talk about deceptive behavior. So that's what he was born with. And we can have a debate about nature or nurture, but the fact is that Jacob, as he grows, he lives up to this name. As a young man, with the help of his mom, right, we know the story well, Jacob conspires to trick his dad. He steals his brother's birthright. And when Esau finds out what has happened, Jacob has to leave. He runs for his life. He makes his way to his uncle's home where he settles down to live and to work. And it's in that time of working for his uncle that Jacob gets a taste of his own medicine, because it turns out that his uncle is just as crafty as he is. He continually tricks Jacob into working for him year after year. And for 14 years, Jacob works for his uncle. During this time, he marries, has children. He starts to accumulate wealth of his own, but it should be said that that's not done without some more craftiness, some tricks of his own. Why we find Jacob on the move again today. Jacob wears out his welcome at his uncle's place, and he makes up his mind that he is ready, or that he has no choice, perhaps, but to go home. Finally, it's time to face up to his past with his brother Esau. He takes his family, his servants, all his flocks of sheep, and he runs away once more, this time from his uncle. And that's where we find him today. In trouble, yet again, on the run, anxious about this impending reunion with Esau, and in the wilderness, now literally fighting for his life as this mysterious man comes to him one night. And Jacob, after everything he's been through, he wrestles back with everything he's got. And it's really something, isn't it? Like, I can't imagine that I would have that same stamina. Jacob doesn't give up. Can't help but wonder perhaps if his persistence and perseverance has something to do with the fact that he's now got a lot to lose, right? He has a family now, and we know well how powerful force love is. It drives us, it keeps us going. Jacob also, though, has had a lifetime of having to fight for what he's got, so maybe that's just what was in his nature. He couldn't give up. Whether it was love, these well-honed survival skills, or a mixture of the two, or something else altogether, Jacob wrestles through the whole night, holding his own until at daybreak, the man finally gives up. And Jacob's injured in this, right? His hip is knocked out of joint, but he still doesn't let go without getting something for his effort. In fact, he demands a blessing. And for his persistence and his perseverance, he gets his wish. He receives his blessing and a new name, Israel, because he struggled with God and prevailed. And as the sun rises upon him, he continues on his way to meet his brother, limping, but ready to face his past and his future by the grace of God. Now, Jacob's story, I think if we think about our own individual journeys of faith, his story has a lot to say to us. But today, as we are beginning a new pastoral relationship, I've been wondering this week about what Jacob's story might mean for us as a community. Every pastor in every congregation, as Lori was alluding to this in her introduction, and we didn't touch base about this, but we are on the same page. I have my history, you have your history. And you might say that, like Jacob, we have our flaws, we also have our blessings. I only know a little bit about yours, right? What I've heard from the call committee. I did have a meeting with council. You don't know much about me yet either, but that will change in the coming weeks and months. We'll get to know one another better. We'll get to know those flaws and those blessings, our strengths and our weaknesses. Hopefully we will learn how to build one another up, to use our strengths together for good, for the ministry of this congregation. There will be times that we'll disappoint one another. We're only human, and that's true as for pastors as well. And my hope is that when those moments come, that we don't give up, right? That we persist in grace and in love for one another. And dare I use that P word, but we are still navigating life in a global pandemic, right? Even though so much has changed from 2.5 years ago, we're still very much with Jacob by that stream, not yet sure what's going to lay ahead for us. We've already spent a long time wrestling, struggling, figuring out what ministry looks like in this time. And I know a lot of us are feeling that. We're feeling weary, we're feeling tired. Maybe we even are nursing some of our own hurts and wounds because it's been a really hard time. And the hard part is the wrestling is not fully behind us yet. We are still figuring out what God is calling us to do and be in this time, what ministry looks like now as we've come through this time with COVID. Unlike Jacob, we don't wrestle alone, though we have one another for support and encouragement as we do that persisting in love for God and for our neighbors. And I will say, although I am just getting to know you, what struck me when I met with the call committee and with council and with the interactions I've had this week is that it is clear to me how much you love your church and how much you care for one another, how much you care for this community. And it would be nice if we could say that about every congregation, but I don't think it is, unfortunately, true. But I feel that of you, and I'm very excited to be a part of that, to become a part of this community. I know how hard it's been for you to be without a permanent full-time pastor for this past year and a bit. I will never profess to have all of the answers. I don't know what lies ahead for us in the future, but I'm so excited to wrestle with you, to wrestle with these hard questions together of what God is calling St. Peter's to do and to be in this moment of time. Now, this is daunting work. It is not easy work. It's not for the faint of heart. And I think we would do well to hold on to Jesus's exhortation to pray always and not to lose heart. Because this work is equally exciting and hope-filled. We know that just as Jacob made it through that night of wrestling to see the sun rise upon him, we can trust that the sun will rise upon us too. We will most definitely be changed. We are already changed by what we've gone through in the last couple of years. We are not the same. Maybe we are even limping a little bit, but we can trust that God is with us every step of the way and that God is leading us forth. And I, for one, cannot wait to see where we end up. Amen. As you are able, I invite you to rise in body and in spirit as we sing together our hymn of the day, number 790, Day by Day.
draw me nearer to my heavenly goal. Love divine beyond all mortal measure brings to naught the burdens of my quest. Savior, lead me to the home I treasure, where at last I'll find eternal rest. Day by day, I know you will provide me strength to serve and wisdom to obey. I will seek your loving will to guide me. For the past, I struggle day by day. I will fear no evil of tomorrow. I will trust in your enduring grace. Savior, help me bear life's pain and sorrow, till in glory I behold your face. Oh, what joy to know that you are near me when my burdens grow too great to bear. Oh, what joy to know that you will hear me when I come, oh Lord, to you in prayer. Day by day, no matter what betide me, you will hold me ever in your hand. Savior, with your presence here to guide me, I will reach at last the promised land.